The Watauga County Spotlight on Education show is brought to you by the orthodontal and pediatric offices of Drs. Mayhew, Scheffler, Kahn, and Hardaway.
Hi, this is Marshall Ashcraft, Watauga County Schools Public Information Director. Today we're going to take a few minutes to talk with you about some things going on in the schools. And I have here with me today our very special guest, Superintendent Dr. Scott Elliott. And Dr. Elliott is early in his career with our system, but a very experienced educator in Transylvania County. And why don't we take just a minute for you to tell us a little bit about how you came to be here and what brought you to education as a career.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marshall. So this is my 19th year as a teacher in public education, all in North Carolina. As you said, my family and I moved here from Transylvania County in Brevard, that's just south of Asheville. I started as a community college teacher. I taught adult basic skills in furniture factories and community college settings, even an adult maximum security prison, a job corps, before I became a high school English teacher. I spent several years teaching high school English and carpentry and computer skills before I became a middle school assistant principal, which I enjoyed very much. I'd never had experience with middle school students before, but came to love them very much. And then was asked to go be a principal at a different middle school, and I was a middle school principal for several years before I was asked to come to work in the school district's central office. At that time I was coordinating student services, school counselors, social workers, school psychologists, dropout prevention, mental health services, that sort of thing. And then from 2004 to 2009 I just took on more and more roles in the central office, being a curriculum director and other things. As we cut and consolidated, I took on more jobs, which was great, being in a small school system. And then eventually I took on the role of being an assistant superintendent. And in that job I was responsible for almost every department in our school system, from technology and accountability and testing, student services and curriculum, even driver's education, everything except pretty much athletics and facilities, which was a great experience. And as I said, we were there for 19 years, so it was hard to leave, but we were very fortunate last year when we had the opportunity to come here. My wife Laura is also a career teacher. She is a middle grade science teacher, and we have two small children. Our son is in the 3rd grade and our daughter is in the 1st grade at Parkway School, and they love it here, and we love it here very much.
Well, I'd have to say too, and he was too modest to say this about himself, but we are certainly very fortunate to have Dr. Elliott with us. He's been very well received both within the school system and in the community, and we're appreciating all you're doing to build those relationships here.
Thank you.
In Watauga County. So we know that we appreciate having you here. I'll sort of use that as a segue to ask about your impressions about our school system and our community now that you're nearing the end of your first year as superintendent.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a blessing for me to be here. I'm not sure that we ever really thought that we would leave the school system where we were before, but we knew that our children would get an excellent education in this school system, and that as an educator that I would be able to work in a school system where I could be supported and have the resources that we need to do good work. So I feel blessed to be here. It's good to have a new perspective, having had experience somewhere else and then coming here and seeing things new. I've been able to see some things and appreciate some things that maybe in the district or in the community we already take for granted. For example, the support that our community here gives to the schools is extraordinary. People love the public schools here. And in part that's because our schools are very community oriented. The schools in many ways define our communities. Bethel School is as much a part of the Bethel community as anything else. The same with Parkway School or Hardin Park, Mabel, on and on and on. Our schools are central to the community, and the community loves the schools. It's great that we have small schools. The K-8 model is a very unique model in North Carolina for how schools are organized. It has its benefits, in some ways it has its drawbacks, but it means that we have small schools. And if you look at the so-called school reform initiatives going on across the state and the country, people are not seeking out larger schools. So it's fortunate that we already have small, very personable, community-oriented schools where people can come together, parents can work together, teachers know the children, and children feel like they really are someone in the school. we always need more things. There are always new challenges and no shortage of needs for funding, but we're relatively well funded. Our county commissioners, we're among the top in the state in terms of our per pupil expenditure, and that's very fortunate. Not every school system in North Carolina is so fortunate to have so much local support. So I guess I would also say that the presence of the university here and our relationships with ASU are very unique. And to a person, everyone that I've met at ASU wants to be supportive of our public school system, to partner with us. We have many university faculty and employees who have their own children in our school system, and we have lots of relationships already between teachers and professors and departments, a lot of grant-funded programs that really allow some innovative things to happen in our schools that, again, aren't happening much of anywhere else.
Now, that community support, I think, is one of the things that distinguishes our school system and that is one of the great strengths of it. One other thing I've heard you mention at times is just your impressions of the caliber of the people we have working in our school system, teachers and other personnel as well.
That's true. People want to come to Watauga County to work. We have a great teachers university here in Appalachian State University, but it isn't just ASU graduates. By any measure that you look at, Watauga County Schools is among the top school systems in the state. So we have a reputation for quality, for being a great place to work, for being a great place for children to learn and go to school. It's a very desirable community to live in. It's a well-regarded school system. And as long as we can maintain that, we'll continue to attract very high-quality teachers and other professional staff to come to work in the school system. Last summer, we filled something like 70 positions, which was a lot for the size of our school district. We have about 700 to 750 employees, depending on how you count part-time employees. And we filled about 70 positions last year. I think we hired around 2% of the applicant pool. We had a large number of applicants. So fortunately, we can choose the best of the best of people wanting to go into the teaching profession. Now, we have some areas where we have a very hard time attracting and retaining people because nationwide and even across the state, we're having a hard time filling positions in special education or math or science or fields where other career fields pay more. And I think it's often said the cost of living in Watauga County is higher. It's harder to find housing. It's not the easiest place to live, but
Right.
people want to be here and people want to stay here, and we benefit as a result.
Well, one thing that I know you're very committed to taking this school system, excellent school system as it is, and making it better.
Yeah.
One of the tools that you'll probably be looking at to do that you've talked about previously, is a strategic plan.
Right.
So can you sort of help bring everybody up to date on where that stands in terms of what we're hearing in the early feedback and where we might try to go with going forward?
Sure. So when I was considering coming to Watauga County, I wanted to learn as much as I could about the school system. And one of the things that I looked at was the strategic plan that was in place, that was developed in about 2007. And also the Board of Education's goals. Kind of speaks to the priorities of the district and sort of the guiding principles of the district, what the district believes, what it's paying attention to. A lot has changed since 2007 in terms of the technology that we use, the standards that we have, the federal regulations, and even the nature of this community probably has changed a lot in the last 7 or 8 years. So it's time to take a fresh new look at what are our priorities, what are our values, where do we focus our time and attention, what should we be over the next 10 or 15 years. With increasing demands, to some extent diminishing resources, how do we focus our time and efforts? So we started back in October through a teacher leadership initiative, a group of teachers who came together to look at some needs at the district, to collect information from the community, teachers, parents, students, business owners, anyone who feels like they have a stake in what is going on in our school system, to ask about the future. So far, we've collected a lot of information, but we haven't heard from as many people as we would like. So we're going to continue that initiative. We're going to work again this summer to collect information from civic organizations and church groups and business groups. But at our convocation and when our teachers come back to work this August, we'll spend a lot of time on August the 14th, the first day, not the first teacher work day, but the day that they will all be together doing professional development at Watauga High School, on gathering as much input as possible. We'll have a link on our website. And basically, we're asking 3 questions. We want to know from people, what do we do well? What do people appreciate about the school system? Where are we successful? What are those things that we shouldn't change or that we should continue? We don't want to take that for granted, so we want to know what's going well. We also want to know either what's not going well or what needs to be changed. What do we need to do differently? What are those things that really aren't relevant anymore? Or what business practices need to be improved? Or what are those things that people feel frustrated about that we need to hear about and try to incorporate those into our guiding principles going forward. And then third, we need to know, how are we doing on those things that are important to us? So we're asking the question, how will we know if we're doing well? What does that look like? Certainly, some key indicators of the success of a school system are things like our graduation rate. What percentage of our students are graduating from high school on time in 4 years? What percentage are going on to a 4-year university or the military? What percentage are going directly into the workforce with already some sort of industry credential and training that they earned while in high school? But there are probably many other things that we aren't thinking about that are indicators of a really high quality school system, and we want to know from people, what does that look like? It is a community school system. This is a community that embraces its schools, so the schools and our priorities need to reflect the values and the desires of the community. And so we really do want to know. We really do want people to go and give us their feedback.
And so for those of you listening, I hope you'll sort of keep your eyes and ears open for opportunities to contribute to the formation of that strategic plan. We do want your input. We value your comments. We want you to help us take this school system to the next level. One thing you mentioned during your discussion on that was instructional technology, and certainly that's an area where we've seen enormous changes, where we continue to see a lot of developments very rapidly. So if you would maybe give us some ideas about how you see instructional technology affecting the role of teachers in the classroom and how students learn.
Well, that's a very hot topic right now. It's a very pressing issue in schools all across the country. I'm getting a little older now, but I'm not so old that I remember a time when there were no computers in school, when it just wasn't affordable, the technology wasn't developed enough that it was so relevant. And I'll say that there is a role for technology in instruction and learning, and there's a time when there may not be a role for technology. Technology will never replace skilled, knowledgeable teachers, but technology is a tool that teachers are increasingly embracing in order to reach every single student. And to me, that's what it's about. We're trying to help each student reach his or her potential by customizing the educational experience for every child. And of course, the world is evolving and changing and relying more and more on technology, and we need to embrace that in our schools and help students to be able to live in a high-tech world. So it looks like new forms of technology in our career and technical education programs, high-end equipment in our automotive program, industry-grade probes and meters and other tools in our health occupations classes. But it also means that in grades 8 through 12, every student has their own laptop computer that they use to be able to access digital resources and electronic resources that really help teachers teach in a way that we've never been able to teach before, to help students to reach a world of information and resources they've never, or at least before now, have not really been able to tap into. And we have to realize that the children that are, or the young people that are in our schools now, they're what I call digital natives. They don't remember a time when we didn't have the internet, or when we didn't have cell phones and text messages and social media. And it is the way that they learn. It's the way that they communicate. And it is the way that they will make a living in the future, regardless really of the career that they work in. And we need to embrace that in our schools. I have to say, it's not easy to do. It takes time. It takes professional development for teachers. It takes the purchasing of resources, like the instructional online materials that we use, and also the devices. It's an investment. It's not cheap, but it's worth it, and it's something we're committed to. We're seeing really positive results in the things that students are doing. It's amazing, and if anyone out there ever wants to see how our devices are being used, or how we use technology in our schools, our teachers would love to have parents, grandparents, community members come into their classes and see what they're doing. We are in the first year of a 3-year lease of computer devices that we have. We're already looking at what the next phase of that looks like 2 or 3 years from now. We're already beginning to save money and look for where we can pull together resources to make sure that it continues, because it's really important.
Yeah, I think you described that very well, and I think even in the time that I've been here, I've watched it go from being sort of an interesting experiment and sideline and to being a core element of the instructional process. It really is. It's very important to make that point that it's not going to replace that teacher-student relationship. That is still at the core of instruction, but it is a very important tool to have, and it's one that will become increasingly important over time. So, looking at that, you've indirectly touched on this in talking about the cost and the investment needed to do technology. What are some of the major challenges facing our schools and public education in North Carolina from your perspective?
Well, across the state, funding for all public programs is a critical issue right now. We're slowly coming out of the worst recession or near depression that any of us have ever experienced in our lives. We in public education, I think, have done our part to cut back and save money where we can without negatively impacting the experience that students have in schools. But we've deferred a lot of very important expenses in our facilities. We have facility upgrades and needs. I hear it from parents and students and teachers when I visit to our schools. We've maintained our schools. They're safe. They're healthy buildings, but there's some modernization that needs to occur. There's some updates of our facilities that need to occur. We need to also remain competitive in terms of the ability that we can, the people that we can attract to work in our school system. To me, the number one variable in the quality of a student's experience is the quality of the teacher in the classroom.
Absolutely.
So being able to attract and retain teachers to a county like Watauga, instead of them going to other places in the state where they already could make more money, is a real challenge for us financially. We have a great partnership with our county commissioners. All of our county commissioners are supportive of our schools. They either have some personal connection to our schools through their own children or grandchildren or their own experiences in our schools. We're all sort of on the same team, so to speak, in terms of wanting to maintain a high-quality school system, because it's so key to the other priorities that we have as a community, whether it's economic development or health and safety in the community. Having a high-quality public school system is key, but it's not cheap. To maintain a high-quality public school system, we have to be good stewards of taxpayer money. We have to be creative about how we budget. We have to always be evaluating our budget processes and stop doing things that maybe we don't need to be doing anymore, and finding new ways to fund the new challenges that come along, like our technology initiative. But funding is probably one of those biggest challenges. Second to that is probably just this whole discussion about school choice and about what it means to be a public school system. There are people that I believe probably have some motives for wanting to disparage public education, but I believe that public education is stronger and more successful now in our state than ever before in our history. We graduate more students with higher expectations and higher standards going into universities and into job roles with higher standards than ever before. I think we're doing well. We have a ways to go, but there are too many people, I think, that believe that we should just abandon public education. So things like vouchers for private education, or publicly funded charter schools that really aren't held to the same standards, or the growth in online charter schools really chip away at our ability to support a high-quality public education system. And third, kind of goes back to the first thing, and that's just the people. Making sure that we can provide the right support to the teachers and teachers' assistants and bus garage mechanics and child nutrition workers to make sure that they know that they're appreciated, and support them and help them to do really the good work that they do.
All right. Okay, so looking ahead a little bit, and this is crystal ball gazing is always a risky enterprise, but if you were to look down the road 3 to 5 years or a little more and try to look at 2 or 3 things you want to like to be able to look at and say, we've made real progress in this area, this shows we're being successful, what are some of the indicators you would look for?
For us in Watauga County Schools, for me, number one is our graduation rate that I mentioned earlier. Last year, our graduation rate was around 88%. It's been 87, 88% for the last few years, and we're really putting some some initiatives in place that we hope that'll get that to 95% or even higher. One of those we're really excited about is a new school within a school at Watauga High School called a Cooperative Innovative High School. A lot of people have heard of the early college model where students go to school at a college campus. We're bringing the college campus into the school, and we're focusing on a lot of vocational and career and technical education career tracks where students can get a high school diploma and earn an associate's degree or industry credentials and certificates in construction, culinary arts, automotive, cosmetology, health sciences, and areas like that that I really think are going to help make school more relevant and more challenging for students. We'll see our graduation rate go up. So five years from now, I would look back and want to see that our graduation rate has steadily gone up. I think that when we look back, we also are looking to the future. We want to look at what kind of investment we're making in our schools. Are we keeping up with our facility needs? Are we providing the kinds of technology that our students need? Have we been able to budget and maintain going forward? Our teacher turnover rate would be a key indicator to me. Are we able to attract the right people? And then once we have them here, are we able to support them and help keep them here in the community working with our young people?
Okay, very good. Well, that's about all the time we have for this installment of our update on the Watauga County Schools. I'd like to thank Dr. Scott Elliott, Superintendent, very much for his time and being here with us. I'd like to thank MTN for giving us this opportunity to talk with you. If you'd like more information about our school system, please go to our website, www.watauga.k12.nc.us, or you can just search for it and you'll find us right away. We've got a lot of information on there for you. We try to keep you updated with all the latest developments, and you'll have links to other sites that will help you give additional information on education. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye until next time.
The Watauga County Spotlight on Education show is brought to you by the orthodontal and pediatric offices of Drs. Mayhew, Scheffler, Kahn, and Hardaway.